The stars looked different this far out in space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the view screen show empty darkness between distant suns. His ship had been traveling for 3 months now, exploring the outer edges of human space. The mission was simple: find new worlds that humans could live on and make sure no hostile aliens were hiding in the dark. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been commanding ships for 20 years and had never lost a crew member. The people under his command trusted him completely. Today felt different, though. Something was wrong, but he could not say what. Lieutenant Amy Peterson sat at the weapons control station. She was young, with brown hair tied back in a neat style. Amy had graduated top of her class from the Space Academy and could hit any target with the ship's guns. She kept checking her instruments, even though everything looked normal. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from the long-range sensors," said Communications Officer Ben Taylor. Ben was a quiet man who spoke 5 different human languages and was learning 2 more. He could pick up radio signals from very far away and figure out what they meant. His face looked worried as he studied his screen. Jake walked over to Ben's station. "What kind of readings?" "Metal signatures moving in formation about 2 light hours from here. The computer says there are at least 15 large objects moving together. They're too big to be asteroids and too organized to be space junk." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what this might mean. In all the years humans had been traveling between stars, they had never found intelligent alien life. There were ruins on some dead worlds and strange technology that no one could understand, but no living aliens. If Ben was right, today would change everything. "Are you sure they're artificial?" Jake asked. Ben nodded. "The metal has the same patterns we see in our own ships. Someone built those things and they're moving with purpose." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment every space captain dreamed about and feared at the same time. "Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." The ship's alarm began to ring. Red lights flashed in the hallways as crew members ran to their positions. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Nick Parker made sure all systems were running at full power. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Grant prepared for possible casualties. Throughout the ship, 300 men and women got ready for whatever was coming. Far away in the darkness, Admiral Kekstar stood on the command deck of his flagship. The Zephyrian looked like a cross between a human and a lizard, with scales that changed color based on his emotions. Right now they were dark red, which meant anger and fear. His fleet was dying. The plague had started on their homeworld 6 months ago. It killed Zephyrians slowly, making them weak and sick before they died. Worse, it also damaged their technology. Ships stopped working properly, weapons failed. Life support systems broke down. Half of his people were already dead and the rest would follow soon. Kekstar had led the survivors away from their poisoned world to search for help. They needed medicine, supplies, and most importantly, a new place to live. The Zephyrian Empire had been strong for 1,000 years, but now it was reduced to a few damaged ships full of refugees. "Admiral, we detect unknown vessels approaching," said Commander Velash. She was younger than Kekstar, but just as fierce. Her scales showed the yellow color of alertness. "The ships are not like any we have seen before." Kekstar studied the tactical display. The alien ships were smaller than his own, but there were many of them. They moved in tight formations like warships. "Are they armed?" "Yes, Admiral. Their weapon signatures are strange, but definitely hostile technology." The Admiral's scales turned darker red. In Zephyrian culture, showing weakness to enemies meant death. These aliens had found his damaged fleet and were probably planning to attack. They would try to finish what the plague had started. "Prepare for battle," Kekstar ordered. "Signal all ships to ready weapons. We will not die without a fight." Back on the horizon, Jake watched the alien fleet appear on his main screen. The ships were beautiful in a deadly way, with curved hulls that seemed to flow like water. They were also very large. Each alien ship was twice the size of his own vessel. "Captain, they're powering up weapons," Amy reported. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension. "All enemy ships are targeting us." "Are they responding to our communication attempts?" Jake asked. Ben shook his head. "I've tried every frequency and language protocol we have. Either they can't hear us or they don't want to talk." Jake had to make a choice. His ship was outnumbered 5-1. If he waited for the aliens to fire first, his crew might all die. But if he attacked first, he might be starting a war between two species who had simply misunderstood each other. The alien ships moved closer. Jake could see weapon ports opening along their hulls. There was no more time to think. "Amy, prepare to fire warning shots, target empty space near their lead ship. Maybe we can show them we're not helpless without starting a real fight." Amy's fingers moved over her controls. "Warning shots ready, Captain." On the Zephyrian flagship, sensors detected the human weapons charging. Kextar saw this as proof that the aliens planned to attack. His own people were weak and sick, but Zephyrian honor demanded they defend themselves. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. "Show these scavengers that we still have teeth." The space between the two fleets lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The horizon shook as alien weapons struck its shields. Jake grabbed the arm of his command chair and shouted orders. "Return fire! Protect the ship!" Amy targeted the nearest alien vessel and pressed the firing button. Human weapons were different from Zephyrian ones, but just as deadly. The alien ship's hull glowed white-hot where the energy beam hit it. The battle lasted only 10 minutes, but felt like hours. Both sides fought desperately, each thinking the other had started the fight. When it ended, the Zephyrian flagship had lost its main engine and was drifting helplessly. The horizon had hull damage and several injured crew members. The two fleets pulled back to safe distances, like two wounded animals watching each other carefully. Jake looked at the damage reports and felt sick. He had hoped for peaceful first, contact with alien life. Instead, humanity's first meeting with another intelligent species had ended in violence and misunderstanding. Neither side knew that this terrible beginning would lead to something much better than either could imagine. Dr. Lisa Grant worked in her medical lab surrounded by pieces of alien metal and strange substances. The debris from the battle floated in special containers that kept dangerous materials safely contained. Lisa was a small woman with steady hands and a sharp mind. She had studied alien artifacts before, but never anything this fresh or this important. The metal pieces were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They seemed to change color when she touched them with different tools. Some parts felt warm even, though they had been floating in cold space for hours. But what worried Lisa most were the tiny organisms she found living inside the alien materials. "These aren't normal bacteria," she said to her assistant, medical technician Sam Hughes. Sam was a young man who had joined the crew because he wanted to help people. He looked nervous as he watched Lisa examine the alien samples. "They're definitely alive, but they're not like any life form in our databases." "Are they dangerous to humans?" Sam asked. Lisa adjusted her microscope and frowned. "I don't know yet. But look at what they're doing to the alien metal." She pointed to a sample that was slowly dissolving under the microscope. "Whatever these things are, they're eating the aliens' technology from the inside out." On the bridge, Communications Officer Ben Taylor sat hunched over his equipment. He had not slept for 18 hours because he was trying to understand the alien language. The computer had recorded everything the aliens said during the battle, but their words sounded nothing like any human language. Ben played the recordings over and over again. Sometimes he thought he heard patterns, like the same sounds being repeated in similar situations. Other times it seemed completely random. The aliens used clicks and whistles mixed with deeper sounds that hurt his ears. "Any progress?" asked Captain Jake Morrison as he walked over to Ben's station. "Maybe," Ben said without looking up from his work. "I think their language changes based on emotion. When they were angry during the battle, their voices got deeper. When they seemed scared, the sounds got higher. It's like their feelings are part of how they talk." Jake nodded. "Keep working on it. We need to talk to them before this gets worse." Lieutenant Amy Peterson was checking the weapon systems when Scout Danny Rodriguez called from his small fighter ship. Danny was flying patrol missions around the alien fleet, staying far enough away to be safe but close enough to watch what they were doing. "Horizon, This is Scout 1. Danny's voice crackled over the radio. You need to see this. The alien ships are in bad shape. Really bad shape. Amy put Danny's video feed on the main screen. Everyone on the bridge could see the alien vessels clearly now. Their hulls were covered with dark patches where the metal was rotting away. Some ships had holes in their sides that were slowly getting bigger. Emergency lights flashed on several vessels, and one ship was leaking atmosphere into space. Those aren't battle scars, said Chief Engineer Nick Parker as he joined them on the bridge. Nick was a practical man who understood how machines worked and what could go wrong with them. That damage happened over time. Their ships are falling apart. Jake studied the images carefully. How long would it take for ships to get that damaged? Months, Nick replied. Maybe longer. Whatever is wrong. With their technology, it started long before they met us. Far away in the asteroid field where they had retreated, Admiral Kekstar was having his own problems. His flagship's engine was completely dead, and 3 more ships had lost life support in the past hour. The plague that had destroyed their home world was also destroying their fleet. Commander Velash brought him the daily casualty reports. Her scales showed the blue color of deep sadness. We lost another 100 people today, Admiral. The medicine is not working anymore, and the ship's medical systems keep breaking down. Kekstar looked out at the stars and felt old. He had been a warrior his entire life, fighting battles and winning victories for the Empire. But you could not fight a disease with weapons. You could not intimidate failing technology into working properly. What about the aliens? He asked. Are they preparing to attack again? No, Admiral. Their ships are keeping their distance, but they're not acting hostile. Some of our commanders think they might be waiting for us to die on our own. Kekstar's scales turned dark red again. In Zephyrian culture, waiting for your enemy to die of sickness was considered the most cowardly thing possible. It was worse than shooting them in the back or poisoning their food. Dishonor? He said quietly. Sir, maybe they're not enemies, Velash said carefully. She was young enough to think in new ways, but old enough to be trusted with difficult ideas. Their attack patterns during the battle were defensive. They only fired after we fired first. They pointed weapons at us, Kekstar replied. That is an act of war. Or an act of fear, Velash suggested. What if they were as scared of us as we were of them? On the horizon, Jake was reading reports from all departments. The ship had taken damage, but nothing that could not be fixed. More importantly, his crew was learning things about the aliens that changed everything they thought they knew. Dr. Lisa Grant came to the bridge with her latest findings. Captain, I think I know what's happening to them. The organisms I found in their ship debris are definitely some kind of plague. They're destroying the aliens' technology and probably the aliens themselves. A technological plague? Jake asked. Is that possible? Apparently it is. These organisms seem designed to attack certain types of metal and plastic. The aliens build their ships from materials that the plague can eat. That's why their vessels are falling apart. Ben Taylor looked up from his language work. Captain, I've been listening to their communications. Most of what they're saying sounds like medical reports and damage assessments. They're not planning another attack. They're trying to stay alive. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Are you saying we attacked a group of refugees? It looks that way, sir, Ben replied. Based on their tone and the few words I can translate, they're desperate. They keep using what I think is their word for dying and home lost. Amy Peterson spoke up from her weapons station. Captain, what if we got it all wrong? What if they attacked us because they thought we were going to attack them? Jake sat down in his command chair and thought hard. Everything his crew was telling him suggested that the aliens were not conquerors or raiders. They were survivors fleeing from a disaster that was slowly killing them. The battle had happened because both sides were afraid and neither side could communicate. Dr. Grant, is their plague dangerous to humans? He asked. I'm still testing, but preliminary results suggest no. Our technology is different enough that the organisms can't affect our materials. We might be immune. Jake made a decision that would change the future of both species. Ben, keep working on their language. I want to talk to them. Amy, power down our weapons, but keep shields up. Nick, prepare emergency repair supplies. If these people are really refugees, maybe we can help them. The crew looked surprised, but they followed their captain's orders. Nobody had expected their first meeting with aliens to turn into a rescue mission. Meanwhile, Admiral Kextar was dealing with more bad news. 2 more ships had lost main power, and one vessel was reporting that its hull was dissolving faster than the crew could repair it. The Zephyrian survivors were dying slowly, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Admiral," said Velash, "the alien ships are moving again." Kextar expected to see the human vessels forming an attack formation. Instead, they were spreading out in what looked like a search pattern. Their weapons were powered down, and they were sending out scanning beams that seemed designed to gather information rather than target enemies. "What are they doing?" he asked. "I don't know, sir, but it doesn't look hostile." For the first time since the plague had started, Kextar began to wonder if there might be another way to look at the situation. The aliens had stopped acting like enemies and started acting like something else. He was not sure what, but it gave him a small feeling he had almost forgotten. It felt like hope. The sun in the system was old and angry. Without warning, it threw out a massive burst of energy that swept across space like an invisible storm. The solar flare hit both fleets at the same time, causing electrical systems to spark and fail throughout the ships. On the USS Horizon, the lights went out for 30 seconds before emergency power kicked in. Captain Jake Morrison felt his ship shake as the wave of energy passed through it. All around the bridge, crew members worked frantically to restart their equipment. "Damage report," Jake called out as the main lights came back on. "Chief Engineer." Nick Parker's voice came through the communication system with crackling static. "Navigation is down. Long-range communications are fried, and the main computer is rebooting. We're basically flying blind for the next few hours." The solar flare hit the alien fleet much harder. Their ships were already damaged from the plague, and the energy burst was more than their weakened systems could handle. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kextar watched in horror as half of his remaining vessels went completely dark. "Report," he demanded, but his own communication system was barely working. Commander Velash checked her instruments with growing alarm. "The medical ship Healing Light has lost all power, Admiral. They're drifting and their distress beacon is active. That ship is carrying over 200 civilians, including most of our children." Kextar felt his scales turn the pale color of despair. The medical ship held the future of his people. If those children died, the Zephyrian race would have no tomorrow. On the horizon, Communications Officer Ben Taylor was trying to restore contact with Earth when he picked up something else. Even through the static and interference, he could hear a signal that sounded different from the military communications they had monitored before. "Captain, I'm getting a distress call from one of the alien ships," Ben reported. "The signal is weak, but it's definitely a call for help." Jake looked at the tactical display where Scout Danny Rodriguez was updating the positions of the alien vessels. One ship was drifting away from the others with no lights and no engine thrust. "Danny, can you get closer to that drifting ship and tell us what you see?" Danny's small fighter moved carefully toward the alien vessel. What he found made him forget about military protocol. "Captain, this isn't a warship. It's full of families. I can see people through the windows and some of them look really young. There are kids on that ship." Dr. Lisa Grant had been working on understanding the alien plague when the distress call came through. She immediately thought about the EU civilians who might be dying on that ship. "Captain, request permission to lead a rescue mission. If they're suffering from the same plague I've been studying, I might be able to help them." Jake knew this was a huge risk. His crew would be entering an alien ship with unknown technology and possibly dangerous diseases. But he also knew that children were in danger, and that was something he could not ignore. Permission granted. "Nick, prepare emergency life support equipment. Amy, you're in charge of security. Lisa, take whatever medical supplies you think you'll need." Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Stone had been quiet during most of the crisis, but now she stepped forward. Rachel was the ship's Marine commander, a tough woman who had seen combat on 3 different worlds. "Captain, request permission to lead the boarding party. If we're going into an unknown situation, you need someone with tactical experience in charge." Jake nodded. Take your best people, Rachel, but remember, this is a rescue mission, not an assault. We're trying to save lives, not take them. The boarding party prepared quickly. Rachel chose Sergeant Tony Walsh and 5 other Marines who were known for staying calm under pressure. Dr. Lisa Grant packed medical equipment while Nick Parker gathered emergency power cells and basic life support gear. As their shuttle approached the alien medical ship, they could see the damage more clearly. The hull was covered with the same dark patches they had seen on other alien vessels, but this ship looked like it had been designed for healing rather than fighting. There were large windows showing areas that looked like hospital wards, and the overall shape was more curved and gentle than the warship's. "No response to our docking requests," reported the shuttle pilot, "but I can see an airlock that looks compatible with our equipment." Rachel made the final decision. "Take us in. If they can't answer, they probably need help too badly to worry about permissions." The docking process was difficult because the alien ship was slowly spinning out of control, but the pilot managed to connect their shuttle to the alien airlock without damaging either vessel. When the doors opened, the rescue team got their first close look at alien technology. The corridor was beautiful but clearly failing. The walls were made of some kind of living metal that pulsed with soft light, but dark veins ran through it where the plague was eating it away. The air smelled strange, but not dangerous, and the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. "Stay together and watch for structural damage," Rachel ordered as they moved deeper into the ship. "Lisa, your scanner showing anything dangerous?" Dr. Grant checked her instruments. "The plague organisms are everywhere, but they don't seem interested in our equipment. The air is safe to breathe, but I'd recommend keeping our helmets on just in case." They found the first aliens in what was clearly a medical ward. The beings were tall and graceful, with the same scaled skin they had seen in the battle recordings. But these were not warriors. They were doctors and nurses trying to care for patients with failing equipment and depleting supplies. One of the alien doctors approached them cautiously. The being was obviously female, and her scales showed a mixture of colors that Ben Taylor had told them indicated fear mixed with hope. She spoke in the clicking, musical language of her people, but her gestures made her meaning clear. She was asking for help. "Lisa, can you figure out what's wrong with their patients?" Rachel asked. Dr. Grant moved to the nearest alien patient, a being who was clearly very young. The child's scales were dull and lifeless, and strange lesions covered parts of its body. Lisa recognized the symptoms from her studies of the plague samples. "The disease is attacking their biology the same way it attacks their technology," she said quietly. "Their immune systems are failing and their bodies can't fight off secondary infections." Sergeant Tony Walsh was checking the ship's life support systems with Nick Parker. Tony was a practical man who had grown up fixing things on his family farm before joining the military. "The air recyclers are shutting down section by section," he reported. "This ship has maybe 6 hours of breathable atmosphere left." Nick nodded grimly. "Their power systems are completely fried. Even if we could fix the recyclers, there's no energy to run them." Rachel made a quick decision. "Tony, start evacuating the patients to our shuttle. Nick, see if you can jury-rig some of our power cells to give them temporary life support. Lisa, do whatever you can for the sick ones." The next few hours were a desperate race against time. The human rescue team worked alongside alien medical staff who gradually realized that these strange beings were trying to help rather than harm them. Language barriers meant nothing when children were dying and everyone was working toward the same goal. Dr. Grant shared her medical supplies with the alien doctors, showing them how human medicines might help their patients. The alien medical staff shared their knowledge of the plague, helping Lisa understand how the disease spread and what it did to living tissue. Tony Walsh and his Marines carried unconscious alien children to the shuttle, their training and battlefield rescue proving useful in a very different kind of emergency. Nick Parker worked with alien engineers to restore partial power to critical systems, communicating through drawings and hand gestures when words failed. As the rescue operation continued, Admiral Kekstar received reports that confused and amazed him. The alien warriors he had fought were now risking their lives to save Zephyrian civilians. They were sharing their technology and supplies without asking for anything in return. Admiral, the humans have restored life support to 3 sections of the healing light, Commander Velash reported. Their doctors are working with our medical staff to treat the plague victims. Some of our people are actually getting better. Kextar's scales cycled through several different colors as he tried to understand what was happening. In all his years as a warrior, he had never seen enemies behave this way. The humans were acting with honor toward defeated foes, which Zephyrian tradition taught was the mark of a truly noble people. When the rescue mission was complete, Rachel Stone stood on the bridge of the alien medical ship with the Zephyrian chief medical officer. They could not speak each other's languages, but they understood each other perfectly. Both were healers who had just worked together to save lives. The alien doctor made a gesture that Rachel recognized as gratitude, then offered her a small device that glowed with soft blue light. Rachel accepted the gift and offered her own emergency medical kit in return. As the human shuttle returned to the horizon, both fleets had changed. The aliens no longer saw humans as mysterious enemies bent on destruction. The humans no longer saw aliens as hostile invaders from unknown space. Captain Jake Morrison watched the reunion between alien families on his view screen and felt something he had not expected: pride. Communications Officer Ben Taylor had not slept in 2 days, but his eyes were bright with excitement. The rescue mission had given him hours of recorded alien speech, and finally the patterns were making sense. He had cracked enough of their language to attempt real communication. "Captain, I think I can set up a translation system," Ben reported to Jake Morrison. "It won't be perfect, but we should be able to have basic conversations. The aliens use emotional tones as part of their grammar, which is why it was so hard to understand at first." Jake felt relief wash over him. "How soon can you have it ready?" "Give me 30 minutes to calibrate the system, then we can try talking to their commander." While Ben worked on the translator, Dr. Lisa Grant was making her own breakthrough in the medical lab. The alien biological samples she had studied were finally revealing their secrets. Working with data from the rescue mission, she had identified the exact mechanism of the plague. "The disease is actually a bioweapon," she explained to Captain Morrison and the senior staff. "Someone designed these organisms to attack the specific metals and biological systems that the aliens use. This wasn't a natural plague. It was an act of war." Chief Engineer Nick Parker looked up from the alien technology he was examining. "That explains why their ships are failing in such specific ways. The plague targets their most critical systems. First, can we cure it?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded cautiously. "I think so. The alien doctors gave me samples of their medicines during the rescue. If I combine their treatments with some of our antibiotics, I might be able to create something that can stop the disease." Medical technician Sam Hughes had been working quietly beside Dr. Grant throughout the crisis. Now he spoke up with an idea that surprised everyone. "What if we ask the aliens to help us develop the cure? They understand their own biology better than we do, and we understand how to fight diseases that our technology can't cure." Jake considered this suggestion. Working together on medical research would require a level of trust that neither species had shown yet, but it might also be the key to saving the alien refugees and proving that humans and aliens could cooperate. "Set up the translation system," he decided. "It's time to talk to their leader." Admiral Kextar was dealing with his own internal conflicts. The rescue of the medical ship had forced him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about warfare and honor. Commander Velash had been arguing for direct communication with the humans, but Kextar was still reluctant to show what he saw as weakness. "Admiral, 3 more ships have reported critical systems failures," Velash reported. "The plague is spreading faster than our repair crews can work. If we don't accept help from the humans, we'll all be dead within a week." Kextar's scales showed the gray color of deep thought. As a military commander, his first duty was to keep his people alive. As a Zephyrian warrior, his honor demanded that he never surrender to an enemy. But were the humans really enemies? The Yao. "Humans saved our children," he said quietly. "They risked their lives to help people who had shot at them just hours before. This is not the behavior of conquerors." "No, Admiral. It's the behavior of allies. When Ben Taylor's translation system was ready, Jake found himself facing the most important conversation in human history. The main view screen showed the bridge of the alien flagship, where a tall, scaled being waited with obvious nervousness. "Testing translation system," Ben said carefully. "Can you understand my words?" The alien commander's reply came through the speakers in accented but clear English. "I understand. You speak with the voice machines, clever." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Horizon. I believe you are the leader of your fleet." "I am Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Empire," came the translated response, though empire is now small word for few dying ships. The honesty in that statement surprised Jake. This was not the boastful declaration of a military enemy, but the tired admission of a leader who had lost almost everything. "Admiral Kextar, we want to help your people. Our doctors believe they can cure the disease that is killing you." There was a long pause before Kextar responded. When he did, his voice carried emotions that the translator could not fully capture. "Why do you offer help? We attacked your ship. We tried to kill you." Jake had been thinking about this question since the rescue mission began. "Because you're not our enemies. You're people in trouble, and helping people in trouble is what humans do even when those people have hurt you." "Especially then." Admiral Kextar was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke again. "Your words are strange to Zephyrian ears. We have been warriors for many generations. When someone attacks us, we attack back. When we win, we take what we need. When we lose, we die with honor. You offer a different way." "Not a different way," Jake replied. "An additional way. There's a time for fighting and a time for healing. This is a time for healing." The conversation continued for over an hour, with both leaders carefully sharing information about their peoples and their current situations. Kexter explained how the plague had destroyed their homeworld and forced them to flee with only a handful of survivors. Jake described humanity's expansion into space and their hope of finding peaceful contact with other intelligent species. "Your doctors believe they can cure the plague?" Kextar asked. "They need to work with your medical staff to develop the treatment. This isn't something we can do alone." This was the critical moment. Kextar would have to allow human doctors and scientists onto his ships, giving them access to Zephyrian technology and biological information. For a military commander who had spent his life protecting secrets, it was almost impossible to consider. "If I agree to this cooperation, what do you ask in return?" Kextar inquired. "Nothing," Jake replied. "We ask for nothing except the chance to help." "Nothing." Kextar's scales cycled through several colors. "You save our children, offer to cure our plague, and ask for nothing. This makes no sense to warrior minds. Then maybe it's time to think with something other than warrior minds." While the two commanders talked, their crews were already beginning to work together. Lieutenant Amy Peterson had organized supply runs to the alien ships using small shuttles to deliver emergency equipment and medical supplies. She worked with navigator Chris Bell to plot safe routes through the damaged alien fleet. Amy was surprised by how quickly the alien crews learned to work with human technology. They seemed genuinely grateful for the help and eager to share their own knowledge in return. The fear and hostility from the first battle had been replaced by curiosity and cooperation. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Grant was preparing for the most important research project of her career. Working with alien doctors to cure an alien plague would require combining two completely different approaches to medicine. But she was excited by the challenge. "Sam, pack everything we might need for extended research," she told her assistant. "We're going to be working on their ships for days or weeks." Sam Hughes had been nervous about working with aliens, but the rescue mission had changed his perspective. "Doctor, the alien medical staff seemed really knowledgeable. Maybe we can learn as much from them as they learn from us." "That's exactly what I'm hoping for." The first joint research session took place on the alien medical ship that had been rescued from the solar flare. Dr. Grant and 3 human medical technicians worked alongside 5 Zephyrian healers in a laboratory that looked like something from a science fiction movie. The alien medical equipment was beautiful and sophisticated, but it was also failing due to the plague. The human equipment was simpler but more robust. By combining both approaches, the research team began to make progress that neither species could have achieved alone. The plague organisms respond to this human antibiotic, one of the alien doctors communicated through the translation system, but only when combined with our cellular regeneration treatment. Dr. Grant watched the test samples under her microscope. For the first time since the crisis began, she saw the plague organisms dying instead of spreading. It's working. We're actually killing the disease. The news of the medical breakthrough spread quickly through both fleets. Human crew members who had been suspicious of the aliens began to see them as partners in a vital mission. Zephyrian refugees, who had expected to die in empty space, began to hope for survival. But the biggest change was in the relationship between Admiral Kextar and Captain Morrison. As they continued their conversations over the following days, they discovered that they had more in common than either had expected. Both were leaders who cared deeply about their people. Both had made difficult decisions in order to keep their crews alive. Both understood the weight of command and the loneliness that came with it. Captain Morrison, Kextar said during one of their talks, "I must ask you a personal question. Why did you choose to help us instead of destroying us? Your weapons could have finished what the plague started." Jake thought carefully before answering. "Admiral, imagine if Earth was dying and human ships were fleeing through space looking for help. What would you want alien species to do if they found us?" "I would want them to show mercy. Then you understand why we're helping you." As the joint medical teams worked to produce enough cure for the entire Zephyrian fleet, the cure worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Within 3 days of the first treatment, Zephyrian patients who had been dying were sitting up and talking. The dark lesions on their scales faded away, and their eyes regained the bright intelligence that the plague had dimmed. More importantly, the disease stopped spreading through their ships and technology. Dr. Lisa Grant stood in the medical bay of the Zephyrian flagship, watching alien children play games that reminded her of human children back on Earth. These young beings had been near death just a week ago, and now they were laughing and running around like any healthy kids would do. "The treatment is completely successful," she reported to Captain Jake Morrison through her communication device. "We've eliminated the plague from their biology and their technology. The Zephyrians are going to survive." Medical technician Sam Hughes had spent the past few days working closely with Zephyrian healers, and he was amazed by what they had learned from each other. "Captain, their medical knowledge is incredible. They understand cellular regeneration in ways we never imagined. I think this cooperation could benefit both our species for generations." The success of the medical collaboration had created bonds between human and Zephyrian crew members that went far beyond simple professional cooperation. Lieutenant Amy Peterson had been working with Zephyrian engineers to repair their weapon systems, not for war, but to make sure their ships could defend themselves during their journey to a new home. "Their technology is so different from ours," Amy explained to Chief Engineer Nick Parker. "But once you understand the principles, it's actually more efficient than our systems. They grow their machines instead of building them." Nick had been fascinated by Zephyrian engineering since the first day of cooperation, and they're just as interested in our manufacturing techniques. "I think we could teach each other a lot." The real test of the new relationship came when Admiral Kextar accepted Captain Morrison's invitation to visit the USS Horizon. It would be the first time a Zephyrian had set foot on a human ship, and both crews were nervous about how the meeting would go. Kextar arrived with a small honor guard, including Commander Velash and 2 other senior officers. When the airlock opened and the Zephyrians stepped onto the human ship, everyone held their breath. The moment felt like the most important few seconds in the history of both species. Jake Morrison stood at attention with his senior officers as the alien delegation approached. Admiral Kextar was taller than Jake had expected, with scales that shimmered in colors the human eye could barely perceive. His movements were graceful and controlled, showing the discipline of a lifetime military officer. "Admiral Kextar, welcome aboard the USS Horizon," Jake said formally. Kextar replied in his own language, then switched to English as the translator kicked in. "Captain Morrison, I am honored to stand on your ship. Your people have shown mine a kindness we will never forget." The formal tour of the ship became something much more meaningful as Kextar saw how humans lived and worked in space. He was impressed by the efficiency of human engineering and the loyalty between crew members. The humans were equally fascinated by their alien visitors, especially the way Zephyrian scales changed color to show their emotions. Communications Officer Ben Taylor walked with Commander Velash as they visited the ship's communication center. Ben had been working with Velash to improve the translation systems, and they had developed a friendship based on their shared love of languages. "Your translation work has made all of this possible," Velash told Ben through the improved translator. "Without communication, we would still be enemies afraid of each other." "Language is the bridge between minds," Ben replied. "I think our species have a lot to say to each other." The real breakthrough came during a private meeting between Admiral Kextar and Captain Morrison in Jake's ready room. Away from their crews and the formal protocols, the two leaders could speak honestly about what had happened and what it meant for the future. "Captain Morrison, I must tell you something that shames me," Kextar began. "When we first met your ship, I ordered the attack because I believed you were scavengers who had come to prey on our weakness. In Zephyrian culture, showing mercy to a defeated enemy is considered the highest form of honor. But I was too afraid and proud to recognize that you were offering that mercy." Jake poured 2 cups of coffee and offered one to the alien admiral. Kextar sniffed the drink curiously before taking a careful sip. His scales showed pleased surprise at the taste. "Admiral, fear makes all of us do things we regret later," Jake replied. "The important thing is what we choose to do after we realize our mistakes. Your people chose to help us despite our attack. That choice has taught me that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to fight is important, but the strength to heal may be more important." Kextar set down his coffee cup and looked directly at Jake. "Captain Morrison, I want to propose something that has never happened in Zephyrian history. A formal alliance between our peoples. Not just a treaty or a trade agreement, but a true partnership between species." Jake felt the weight of the moment. This was not a decision he could make alone, but he could begin the process that would lead to something historic. "Admiral, I think my government would be very interested in such an alliance. What did you have in mind?" "A joint colony," Kextar replied. "A world where humans and Zephyrians live together, work together, and learn from each other. A place where both our species can grow stronger because of our friendship." The idea was so ambitious that Jake almost laughed. Then he remembered everything that had happened in the past week. 2 species that had started as enemies were now discussing building a shared future. Maybe nothing was impossible anymore. "Where would we build this colony?" Jake asked. Kextar's scales showed the warm colors of excitement. "My scouts have found a world 3 days' travel from here. It has the resources both our species need and no intelligent life to displace. The planet could support millions of people from both our civilizations." While the 2 leaders discussed the future, their crews were already working together in ways that proved the alliance could succeed. Sergeant Tony Walsh had been teaching Zephyrian security officers human combat techniques, while learning alien martial arts that emphasized speed and precision over brute force. Scout Danny Rodriguez was flying patrol missions with Zephyrian pilots, comparing the capabilities of human and alien fighters. The Zephyrian ships were faster and more maneuverable, while human ships had better armor and weapons. Together, they made an unbeatable combination. Dr. Lisa Grant and the Zephyrian medical staff had moved beyond treating the plague to sharing knowledge about dozens of other diseases and medical techniques. They were discovering that human and Zephyrian medicine complemented each other perfectly. "We could establish joint medical research facilities," Lisa suggested during one of their planning sessions. "Think about what we could accomplish if we combined our knowledge and resources." The Zephyrian chief medical officer's scales showed deep agreement. "Our healing arts focus on working with the body's natural systems. Your techniques focus on fighting disease directly. Together, we could eliminate sickness from both our species." As the alliance planning continued, both fleets received unexpected visitors. Human ships arrived from Earth after picking up distress signals from the USS Horizon. At the same time, a small group of surviving Zephyrian vessels appeared, having followed the same route that Admiral Kexitar's fleet had taken while fleeing their destroyed homeworld. The arrival of additional ships from both species created the first real test of the new alliance. The human admiral who commanded the rescue fleet was suspicious of the aliens and wanted to take a much more cautious approach. Some of the newly arrived Zephyrians were angry that their admiral was cooperating with unknown aliens, instead of focusing purely on Zephyrian survival. Captain Morrison and Admiral Kexitar found themselves working together to convince their own people that cooperation was better than suspicion. They organized joint meetings where crew members from all the ships could see the results of human-Zephyrian collaboration. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Stone demonstrated the rescue techniques that had saved the alien medical ship. Chief Engineer Nick Parker showed how human and Zephyrian technology could be combined to create better systems than either species could build alone. Dr. Grant presented medical research that proved both species would be healthier working together. But the most convincing argument came from the children. Human and Zephyrian young people had begun playing together during the medical cooperation, and they had developed games that combined elements from both cultures. When the new arrivals saw their own children happily playing with alien friends, most of their fears disappeared. The formal alliance ceremony took place on the bridge of the USS Horizon, with representatives from both species participating. Admiral Kexitar performed a traditional Zephyrian honor ritual, declaring humans to be brothers and sisters in the great family of intelligent life. Captain Morrison responded with a human military ceremony that formally recognized the Zephyrian Empire as humanity's first true ally among the stars. "Today we end the age of two species traveling alone through the galaxy," Jake announced to the combined crews.